Salute. How y'all doing? My name is DerrickCWilliams. Shout out and respect due to my newest subscribers, Inga Chip 86, and last but certainly not least, Picky Dale. Picky Dale believes that you should just leave people be and not judge them for how they eat or what they eat. I would agree with that assessment from Picky Dale, but knowing human behavior the way I think I do, it's in our nature to judge based on the information that is presented to us. And anytime you hit record and you put yourself out there, you run the risk of people passing a judgment. Just a little observation of mine. But anyway, shout out and respect due to Picky Dale. There is more and more news coming out every day. The lunacy of this lockdown for a quote plague or a quote crisis or a quote pandemic that the world is currently facing. But what if I told you that game is being ran, and now what is the exit strategy? Now that we have information coming out to offset or counter the quote official story of millions of people being dead. The title of this presentation is Sweden is the Model. And I'm just one man in the comment section on YouTube. I will play you this clip of a Fox News reporter on a hot mic and what he told one of his fellow colleagues. And I'll finish that up with a talk from a Swedish epidemiologist. He's as good as it gets. I cannot pronounce his name, but you can understand what he means when he says what he says in this presentation. All y'all take care. Greenville, Mississippi till I die.
All right, man. Where do you go, man? You can take out the mask, Doug. The case fatality rate's like 0.1 to 0.3 according to USC. Is it really? That's reassuring. USC. Everybody here's been vaccinated anyway. USC and LA County Public Health come out with a study. They found that there are 7,000 cases in California, but they really believe that there are anywhere from 221,000 to 442,000 people who were infected. Really? Yeah.
And so that makes it 0.1 to 0.3? Does a study to come out with it?
Yeah, just give it to that. So it suggests that the case fatality rate is about 10. Wow. Which puts you right in line with the flu.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
So it was a hoax. I don't think it was a hoax.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for tuning in. You are watching LockdownTV. This is the pop-up news and discussion program from Unheard. Throughout the lockdown weeks, we have been bringing conversations and interesting people together to work out what's going on and how we should be thinking about this current crisis. I'm delighted that today we are joined down the line from Sweden by Dr. Johan Giesecke. Dr. Giesecke, thank you so much for making the time today.
My pleasure.
So if I can give you help me a little bit here, but you trained originally at the London School of Tropical Medicine, is that right?
No, it started before that actually. I used to be an infectious disease clinical doctor and worked a lot with AIDS patients during the 1980s. And that's what put me into epidemiology. And then I spent 1 year or 2 years at the London School of Tropical Medicine in the early 90s. And then I came back to Sweden, and then I became state epidemiologist for Sweden, which means having control over all the infectious diseases.
Which is the job that Anders Tegnell currently has.
So I actually hired him 20 years ago, and then I was his boss, and now he's my boss. But it's working actually quite well.
And you then became chief scientist at the European Centre for Disease Control.
Yep.
And what roles do you have now? Who are you advising at the moment?
I'm advising Anders Tegnell at the Swedish Agency for Public Health on a consultant basis. I'm retired really, so I'm doing this mostly because it's fun.
And the World Health Organization, you were saying you were on a call with them earlier today. Do you have an ongoing relationship with them?
Yes, I'm advising the Director General together with a group of scientists, but that's unpaid. It's as an honorary post in a way.
So having now, as it were, established your credentials to talk with confidence on this topic, there's been a lot of confused thinking and a lot of confusion about what the correct response to a threat such as COVID-19 should be. And I just wanted to begin by getting your kind of summary thoughts of how Sweden is differing from other countries, and why you think that is.
The main reason is that we, or the Swedish government, decided early in January that the measures we should take against the pandemic should be evidence-based. And when you start looking around for the measures that are being taken now by different countries, you find that very few of them have the shred of evidence base. But one we know that more, and that is washing your hands is good for you and good for others when you're in an epidemic. But the rest, like border closures, school closures, social distancing, there's almost no science behind most of these.
So what is the current policy in Sweden? Social distancing is part of the policy, isn't it? What is the regime that Sweden has gone with?
The main difference to other countries is that you're not locked up in your home. If you go out to buy food or groceries or drugs, medicines, there's no police to stop you in the street and ask you what you're doing here. That's one thing. People are asked to stay inside, but there's no reinforcement or enforcement of that. People do it anyway. So that's one. We have the rule that a crowd cannot be bigger than 50 people.
So I can still have an event for 49 people?
Yes.
I want.
You could. And the schools, the upper schools are closed, secondary education and universities closed, schools up to age 15, 16 are open. What more do we have? The nursing homes or houses for old people are closed to visitors.
So it sounds like it's a moderate social distancing regime then at the moment.
It is. It's very similar to the one that the UK had before. There was a famous paper by the Imperial College, by the modelers who made models for infectious diseases, that came out, and the day after you made a U-turn in England.
Yeah, so tell us about that. So the original strategy became known as a kind of herd immunity strategy. That's what it was called. Before we come on to talk about the imperial model, which I would like to talk about, is it correct to call it herd immunity? And is that the Swedish strategy?
It's not a strategy, but it's a byproduct. The strategy is to protect the old and the frail. Try to minimize their risk of becoming infected and taking care of them if they get infected. And if you do it, you would probably get herd immunity in the end, but that's a byproduct of it's not the main reason to do it.
So you were saying then, so the initial UK response seemed to be similar to what Sweden is doing now, and you thought that was better?
Yeah. No, I think it was very good actually, and we were very pleased with having the same policy as the UK. That gave some credibility to what we were doing. But then Mr. Johnson made his 180-degree turn.
Yeah, so why, there may have been other political factors involved. He was definitely under a lot of pressure because lots of European countries were doing a formal lockdown at that point. But the turning point did seem to be that Imperial College report, which forecast 510,000 deaths in the UK with a mitigated approach, 250,000 deaths with a mitigated approach, which is roughly equivalent to what you're doing in Sweden. And then it suggests that it might be as few as 20,000 if we did a full suppression or lockdown. What was your impression of that paper?
I think it's not very good. And the thing that they miss a little is any models for infectious disease spread are very popular. Many people do them. They're good for teaching. They seldom tell you the truth because I make a small parenthesis. Which model could have assumed that the outbreak would start in northern Italy in Europe? Difficult to model that one. And any such model, it looks complicated. There are strange mathematical formula and integral signs and stuff, but it rests on the assumptions. And the assumptions in that article would be heavily criticized. Take the rest of your day if I went through them all. The paper was never published scientifically. It's not peer-reviewed, which a scientific paper should be. It's just an internal departmental report from Imperial. And it's fascinating. I don't think any other scientific endeavor has made such an impression on the world as that rather debatable paper.
So is your impression it was overly pessimistic as
Yes.
to...
Oh, yes. Very much so.
So what, I mean, I guess it comes down to some degree of speculation, but what's your impression of how serious the disease is, and what kind of fatalities we would be looking at if we had a more moderate or more mitigated approach?
Yeah. What's the number of deaths in the UK now? I don't know. I haven't.
13,000.
So you're getting close to 20 now.
Yeah.
But probably not 510,000. I think, let me back one step. One thing that the model has missed is that it assumes that the hospital capacity will remain the same. And that's not what's happening anywhere. I mean, in Sweden, we've tripled our intensive care capacity, and I think that's happening in the UK as well. But the paper completely overlooks that. It's cites that as a static thing.
But so just to sort of come back on this, like, the argument, what people watching will be asking, and I think what most people who support the lockdown would say, and that is the overwhelming majority of people in politics and in the media, is that the reason the curve is now flattening, are gradually coming down on a daily basis, is because of the lockdown, and that shows that the policy has worked. And Professor Neil Ferguson, who led the Imperial papers, suggests that he stands by his prediction that 500,000 odd people would have died had that not taken place. So if it wasn't the lockdown that has been flattening our curve, what else could it have been?
Well, one thing is immunity. The other is that the people who are frail and old will die first. And when that group of people will get less deaths as well. The other is that when you start your exit strategy, that's a favorite word now in all this public health, the exit strategy. When you start that one, you'll have some of the deaths that we had already.
Yes, so I mean, does that mean then that as the disease passes through the population, are we going to see second and third spikes now after this?
It will be part of the exit strategy, because the only way to check that if you're taking away one restriction, let's say we'll open the schools again. How do you evaluate that? You have to say, numbers are going up again. More people are dying. We have to stop that. We have to pull back that softening and try another. That's what exit strategy will be in all countries. Countries will ease up a little on the restriction, see what happens over the next 2-3 weeks. It didn't work very well. We resume that. We try another restriction. We lift that one. It worked. And so this is, every country will have to do it that way. And that the increasing number of deaths will be part of checking which strategy should be kept and not.
So the whole sort of rationale for introducing these lockdowns across Europe that has created such a unbelievable side effects and pretty much stopped the whole world in its tracks, misguided policy. And do you think it's doing more harm than good?
Yes, I think so. On the whole, I mean, if you listen, what I'm saying is that people who will die a few months later are dying now, and that's taking months from their lives. So that's maybe not nice. But comparing that to the effects of the lockdown, which may be, I mean, what am I most afraid of? It's the dictatorial trends in Eastern Europe, that Orban is now dictator for Hungary forever. There's no finishing date. I think the same is popping up in other countries. It may pop up in more established democracies as well. I think the ramifications can be huge from this. We don't even start seeing them.
So you think the correct policy from the start, just to get this clear, should have been to shield old and vulnerable groups?
And there we failed. Sweden failed. We will not